Hello and welcome. You're watching News Central Television. I am Judith TB. It's time for News Central now, and here are the top stories at this hour. Delta State Governor Sheriff Oboriwori announces defection from the People's Democratic Party (PDP) to APC. Court in Finland approves extradition of self-acclaimed Prime Minister of Biafra Simon Ekpa to Nigeria over alleged terrorism. And withdrawal of Niger, Mali and Burkina Faso top the agenda as ECOWAS leaders meet in Ghana. Details shortly. And we'll begin with breaking news from Delta State, where we understand that Governor Sheriff Oboriwori, along with his predecessor, Ifeanyi Okowa, has defected from the People's Democratic Party, PDP, to the All Progressives Congress, APC. From the governor's move, the move came after months of denial about his potential defection from the People's Democratic Party to the ruling All Progressives Congress. The governor had described the claims as baseless and the work of opposition elements in the state. But sources say the governor has sent emissaries to President Bola Tinubu and was considering a move to the APC, raising doubts about his reception within the Delta APC fold. Joining us now for more on this is our correspondent live from Delta State, Austin Azu. Austin, thanks for joining us. Breaking news here. We've heard these rumors for months. There have been months of speculation and denial from the governor. And now this. What do you know? What's going on?
First and foremost, good afternoon, Judith. Of course, the political atmosphere here in Delta State has changed. On the floor now, for the past 20 years, it has been PDP in Delta State. But currently, right now, APC or the government house in the coming days will be painted with the APC logo. And of course, after the stakeholders meeting and the PDP had a meeting here at government house, at the end of the meeting, they all came back from the meeting, the closed-door meeting, all shouting the APC and the mandate we shall stand. Of course, in the confirmed story, the structure of the PDP in Delta State here, all of them has collapsed and all of them are now in APC. And on Monday, precisely, we are told that official statement will be made open. Of course, we had pockets of information that the VP will personally be coming to the state here to receive the governor and others. And the closed-door session have so many of them who are in attendance, the immediate past governor of the state and the vice presidential candidate of the PDP 2023 election, Senator Ifeanyi Okowa, was in attendance. The members of the National Assembly were in attendance, and of course the State House Assembly members, and of course the commissioners and other appointees of the governor were equally in attendance in that closed-door session. In the coming days, we'll be seeing different political scenario that will be playing out here in the state. These are these detail how they are going to move into the APC, and of course how the secretariat of the PDP will now be corrected to be that of the APC. And APC, of course, in the state equally has a secretariat complex that they are having their meetings. So we don't know if that other secretariat of the PDP will become an annex or something like that. Of course, it's a big decision that the governor has taken and the PDP has taken so far. Of course, we will await reactions from residents of the state to know if moving down to the APC will be of good interest to them or to the interest of the political actors in the state.
So what you're saying is that both the state lawmakers, and that's the state's House of Assembly, and and the opposition in general, there's clearly no opposition in Delta. Everyone is now being in the colors of the APC, right or wrong?
Of course, we saw the Speaker of the State of Assembly in attendance, attending the meeting, the honorable members as well, the members of the State Executive Council were in attendance. Of course, we can't conclude that there are no oppositions in the states. Of course, before now, the PDP happens to be the major party in the states, and the opposition then was APC and the Labour Party, AFGA, and the host of others, the other political parties. But however, as it stands at the moment right now, probably the other opposition party will have, of course, in the coming days, will start coming up to begin to, demonstrate their political franchise to say, yes, a society without an opposition, a society without a political opposition will not be good enough. That's like what the commissioner announced after the closed-door meeting, that the taste of the power has changed. So, of course, it means the political scenario on the floor now happens to be the PDP, but right now it's not the APC, and all of them have confirmed that, yes, on Monday, which is going to be a grand rally for the defectors down to the APC. But don't forget that the APC, they have their own internal issues that they are still looking forward to resolve. These are these detailed, their leadership also, who is the leader of the APC in the state.
Right.
But in the coming days, that will
I mean, this wind of change that is blowing over the nation, it's finally found its way to the south-south. I mean, from your earlier submission, you said Delta has been predominantly PDP and even a PDP stronghold for the south-south for 20 years. And what could have led to this defection? What was the last act or the last nail to seal this deal, so to speak? Was it re-election fears? What was it that tilted the wind of change, or the hammer, so to speak?
Yes, some political actors in the states, particularly in the south and the southern Nigeria, have reaffirmed their commitment towards having their own, as of 2023, confirmed the fact that they want a southern president. So for the fallout of the 2023 general election, most of them were not, quite happy about the scenario. And that's why we have some couple of others who played anti-party. But this time around, they want to cement it according to what they said, and they want to perfect it by showing that they have the southern president back to the south. They want to truncate it. And that is why most of them are throwing their weight behind the current president.
Very interesting. I mean, very interesting that you're saying that they're throwing their weight behind the APC. I mean, the president has been very vocal about the fact that he is going to, I mean, he's not said it outright, but we can see from their body language and from the aides and his supporters that he is definitely gearing for 2027, and all eyes are on that ticket to clinch a ticket again for 2027. Now, Ifeanyi Okowa was a running mate for Atiku Abubakar during the 2023 general elections for the PDP. Now him allegedly, defecting to APC, where does that leave him in the mix of this all?
Well, I think his media aides will be able to speak on that. But from what we saw here at Government House here, the former governor was in attendance. Of course, while they were briefing the press, they both said that it was a unanimous decision for the PDP structure to move into APC, considering the fact that they want to have a national stay, considering the fact that they want to ensure that they are able to provide more governance for the people of the states. But, however, residents of the states and in the streets of Asaba, Warri, Sapele, and Ugele, and some of the villages will be able to confirm if this will actually benefit them or not. But the people who are in the other side before now crossing over, they seem to be happy, but the reception will tell if they are going to be welcomed by those who have been at the other side.
Right.
But before now, there have been political horse trading before now that they want to move, and some people have been making some speculations that if they are coming, they should not be accepted. But we don't know if governor and those who defected today will be accepted by the APC. In the coming days, we hope to get across to the leadership of the APC to know if they are going to open their doors to accept them or not. But it will be quite assumed that they have been discussing behind closed doors before now. There were speculations that while the president was away, there were some political arrangements, political penetration from this end to the other side. Obviously, the political movement deal has been sealed. It's just the announcement that was just made today. But we look at the faces of those who are in the APC to know if they're going to accept this, the campaigns or not.
It's very interesting. I wonder what the bidding, or should I say, I don't know the term to use here, but I don't know what's in it for all of the parties and what it means for the South in general and for the PDP as they continue to lose their blocks, and very influential blocks at that. A switch at the top means more voting for when it comes to 2027 for the APC, but only time will tell. Also, what does this mean when it comes to our political and electoral system? Are we heading towards a one-party system? All eyes are on the South-South. Austin, I must say thank you for taking out the time to join us today and for giving us just all the insight from Delta State. Once again, thank you.
You're welcome.
Austin Azu, our correspondent live from Delta there. In the meantime, still in politics in the South-South, the South-South Zonal Working Committee of the PDP has dissolved its Bayelsa State Working Committee and replaced the Edo State Caretaker Committee, citing misconduct, internal crisis, and poor performance. The new caretaker teams have been installed in both states for 3 months following a meeting chaired by Zonal Vice Chairman Dan Orbin in Port Harcourt. Now, Orbin, backed by FCT Minister Nyesom Wike, appointed George Turner and Nosa Ogiave to lead Bayelsa and Edo State, respectively, despite opposition from the PDP National Working Committee. The restructuring was described as a political purge with allies of Wike taking control. The party, however, said the move aims to stabilize and reposition the PDP ahead of future elections, referencing its poor performance in the last Edo governorship poll. Away from that, a Finnish court has approved the extradition of Simon Epa, a Finnish-Nigerian separatist leader, to Nigeria. The Paget Harmin District Court in Lati gave the ruling, on April 18th, with a transfer scheduled for July 15th, 2025. Ekpa, who refers to himself as the Prime Minister of the self-proclaimed Biafra Republic government in exile, is accused of inciting unrest in southeastern Nigeria from abroad. He was arrested in November 2024 after months of surveillance by Finnish authorities. Now, while he is linked to separatist activities, the indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB, has repeatedly disowned him, insisting he acts independently and without their endorsement. President Bola Tinubu reportedly met with Siminalayi Fubara, the suspended governor of Rivers State, in London last week. That's according to Africa Report, which cited 2 unnamed aides to the president. It is not clear at whose instance the meeting held, but sources say Fubara is expected to play ball in order to smoothing his path back to office. Sources privy to the discussion said negotiations are ongoing with the possibility that Fubara's suspension may be lifted before the 6-month deadline. Let's go on a short break, shall we? When we return, we switch gears to Kwara State and bring you news about security in that area. But after the break, stay with us. And you're welcome back. Earlier before the break, we told you that the suspended governor of Rivers State, Siminalayi Fubara, reportedly met with President Bola Tinubu in London last week. Now, this is according to Africa Report, which cited 2 unnamed aides to the president as sources. Now, it's not clear at whose instance this meeting was held, but sources say Fubara is expected to play ball in order to smoothing his path back to office. Now, to give us a bit more insight into this discussion, we're joined by Jaye Gaskia. He joins us live from Abuja and is a public affairs analyst. Mr. Gaskia, thanks so much for joining us. Unprecedented, interesting times we're in. Chance of on your mandate we shall stand. Do we see that happening in Rivers State anytime soon with the governor?
I mean, possibly. I mean, there's always been speculation, actually, when the intervention was made with respect to the declaration of the state of emergency. One of the potential way to look at that and to analyze that was that it was to give both parties to that crisis some form of to wield the big stick, while at the same time giving both parties a time to then actually seek a compromise. Because as at the time that the state of emergency was declared, if we look on from when the Supreme Court judgment on the state legislature was made, and then to the attempt to the serving the notice of impeachment to both the governor and the deputy, that would have created a crisis that would have actually necessitated, if they had succeeded, that would have necessitated an election in 90 days with the speaker being the acting governor. And given the contestation in the state, it's not likely that parts of the state would really would have accepted that. So it's against that background that even at that time it was clear to some that the declaration of the state of emergency was simply to wield the big stick and to say that, okay, look, we can actually resolve this problem by simply just getting rid of everybody. But that you have this time within which you should go and negotiate and reach some form of compromise. So that's my expectation, that's what is happening. And it seems like if this report of this meeting in London is true, then it's probably just in line with that. And so we might have a situation where after a compromise has been agreed, both parties are going to return, both the executive and the legislative arms are going to be restored, and then we're going to see some form of compromise in terms of how they work going forward.
And very worrying times we're seeing here, I must say. I don't know if it's worrying for you because the suspended governor's Easter message to his constituents and to the residents of Rivers State was that, they need to, be in line and stay in line with and trust and support the President Tinubu's administration and his renewed hope agenda, which is a very switch from the tone that he normally would when it comes to addressing his constituents. And so it begs to ask the question about the wind of change that is happening in South-South. Just earlier, before you came on, we saw the breaking news of the predecessor of the governor of Delta State, that's Ifeanyi Okowa, who was a former running mate for Atiku Abubakar for the PDP during the general elections for 2023, and also the governor as well, Governor Sheriff Oboriwori, both now seeming to have switched gears from PDP and now to APC. This wind of change is blowing. What does it mean for the South-South? Are we seeing South-South is predominantly PDP, and we've also seen the tones and the language from the governor of Edo State, of Akwa Ibom State as well. What does this mean as well for the entirety of South-South and coming in 2027? Your take.
Okay, so if we look at what is happening in the South-South, I think also really, it's about the 2027 general elections, but it's also more about what is happening internally within the PDP, much more than the APC and the president. And I think that the alignments that we are seeing now, and particularly from people from leading politicians from the APC in the southern part of the country, and we can extend this actually also into the southwest and the southeast, is that people are playing their arms and they are reacting against the potential for the PDP to once again field a northern candidate in 2027. And so this is a realignment along those regional lines that our politics have always been in terms of, so it's the turn of the South now. And it will look like it's a betrayal if we then allow this to happen again. Remember that it was this issue that actually led to the implosion of the PDP towards the 2023 general elections, and to the split in the party that allowed the emergence of a Wike, for instance, and then as a disruptive influence within the PDP, for instance. And so this is just a continuation of that. And politicians being what they are simply realigning within that context.
And so it looks at, if you're saying that it realigns in our personal gains, that means there's so many persons who's waiting for gains. If 2027 comes and goes, APC wins, we have all of this big wigs from other parties and other states who are in there waiting to get their own end of the bargain fulfilled. What then happens? Are we not going to get figures like El Rufai, for example, who now become dissatisfied and come out to speak about, the party and be saying that the structure was not what was promised in the beginning?
Absolutely. I mean, that's going to happen. So, because that's the case really with every realignment. You're going to find people who are not going to be covered by those realignments, who would feel like they are loose ends, and then we would also have to mobilize. I think that what is more important really is on the part of the citizenry, that as politicians are making these realignments and so on and so forth, that citizens actually place a cost on these realignments in terms of okay, so these politicians are doing this, they are going with their constituencies, but also for citizens and the electorates to begin to actually impose a cost in terms of what their own demands would be in terms of governance. Okay, so this is where you want to align with in order to win re-election, in order to do all of those things. But that's how does this, pan out for us, and then and what are the issues around governance? And I think that it's about time that the electorate also enter into this conversation and begin to make their own demands. And so that's why I also think that we're going to see quite a number of those chants, as you said earlier, in terms of people just trying to also be on the table and be part of have their issues part of the agenda, because otherwise these are just politicians who are simply trying to ensure that their own personal and individual interests are covered at the end of the day, regardless of whether they are positively covered right now or they are left on the outskirts. It's simply people are just looking out for their own interests.
At the end of it, like you said, it all falls down to electorate, but most importantly, it also falls down to the umpire as well, to make sure that that the people's will is expressed at the polls, and there's transparency and accountability for all parties involved, especially the electorate. I must say thank you, Mr. Jai Gaskia, for just taking out the time to give us a bit of insight. Very insightful. I must appreciate you again, Mr. Jai Gaskia. He's a public affairs analyst, joined us from the capital, Abuja. We switch gears now to bring you live crossing from New York, USA, where the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres is giving an address on climate crisis.
To COP30. As today's meeting made clear, we cannot, must not, and will not let up on climate action. Thank you.
Thank you. Amélie?
Thank you, Secretary General. Amélie Botelier from AFP News Agency. You said no group or government can stop the revolution of clean energy. Do you have specific countries in mind, especially the United States? And more generally, what is your message to President Trump, who clearly said that he wants to push for more extraction of fossil fuels?
Well, the United States is a market economy. It's not government that determines the volume that is produced by fossil fuels or that is produced by renewable energy. And we have in the United States, because the economics are clear today, the cost of renewables is cheaper than the cost of fossil fuels. In the United States, we see the private sector with a very dynamic action, and we see many governors that committed themselves to the same objective. So I think we need to look into the United States in the complexity of the US society and not only in the positions taken by the leaders of the country.
Thank you.
Bom dia, Mr. Secretary. Felipe from TV Global Brazil. I'd like to know if China was in this meeting and if there was any progress that make you confident that the countries will release the NDC by September or maybe before.
China was in the meeting, and China has not only announced that they would produce their nationally determined contributions, but President Xi said that those nationally determined contributions would cover all economic sectors and all greenhouse gases. It's the first time that China clarifies this point, and this is extremely important for climate action.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And that live crossing there was all the way from New York, where the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres was giving an address on climate crisis. I said it was important that all governments put concerted efforts when it comes to climate crisis, and that it is man-made. And he understands that it is cheaper to go for fossil fuels, but we must all come together to tackle climate crisis as it is just at the forefront. Now it's time for us to bring you more update from the news. And we switch gears now as Catholic faithfuls in Lagos State are celebrating special Mass at the Holy Cross Cathedral in honor of the late Pope Francis, who died on Easter Monday. Worshippers extolled the virtues of the pontiff, but thanked God for his life of service to God and humanity. Thousands of mourners gathered at St. Peter's Square on Wednesday as Pope Francis's body was moved from his Vatican residence to St. Peter's Basilica ahead of his funeral on Saturday. The Pope's open coffin was carried in a solemn procession as church bells tolled, and the crowd of 20,000 pilgrims applauded a traditional Italian gesture of reverence. Pope Francis died on Monday at the age of 88 following a stroke and complications from double pneumonia. He had spent 5 weeks in hospital earlier this year. Serving for 12 years, he was the first Latin American pontiff and a transformative figure in the Catholic Church. Funeral preparations are now underway in the Vatican. I'm now joined by international correspondent Afia Hagen for more on this. Afia, what are the latest updates from the Vatican City?
Well, stunning pictures there from inside St. Paul's Basilica, where you see thousands of mourners have gathered and will be queuing right through the day and into the evening to be able to see the body of Pope Francis. So this morning, Cardinal Farrell presided over the liturgy of the Word, those prayers and readings from the Bible for Pope Francis, his body, before his body was transferred to St. Paul's Basilica. Now, like I said, there'll be thousands of people turning out in St. Peter's Square and in St. Peter's Basilica to be able to see the Pope's body. They have up until midnight tonight. It's going to be some long opening hours. And then from tomorrow, from 7 a.m. till midnight again, and then from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. on Friday local time, before St. Peter's Basilica will be cleared for that funeral of Pope Francis, which takes place on Saturday.
Tell us more about the funeral arrangements for the Pope this Saturday.
We don't know too much at the moment. What we do know is there's going to be a whole raft of world leaders who will be in attendance. Donald Trump, Sir Keir Starmer, Emmanuel Macron, Volodymyr Zelensky. On a little bit of a side note, Volodymyr Zelensky has said that he wants to speak with Donald Trump when he is at the funeral this weekend, so perhaps some diplomacy will be going on as well. Prince William will be travelling on behalf of King Charles and the rest of the royal family. Ursula von der Leyen will be in attendance as well. The Argentinian and Brazilian presidents will also be in attendance at the funeral also. So it is going to be definitely an absolutely massive occasion, a huge occasion, and one which will be well attended not just by the thousands of faithful like we can see here in these pictures, but by world leaders as well, who are all turning out to pay their respects to Pope Francis. Now, one who won't be there as Vladimir Putin, the Russian president.
Well, A funeral turned to diplomacy meetings. We wait till Saturday. Afia, many thanks. We appreciate you for coming. Afia Hagen giving us a bit of insight for the Pope's funeral this Saturday. Switch gears now in a bold step towards deepening democratic accountability and institutionalized reform. The HIDA Resource Center has unveiled Volume 5 of the Leadership Approval Rating, LAR, titled Voices for Justice, a civic lens on Nigeria's judicial system, documenting public experiences, opinions, and reform demands. News Central's Israel Ifirobo has the latest.
The 5th edition of the Leadership Approval Rating focuses squarely on Nigeria's judicial system, spotlighting citizens' perceptions, experiences, and demands for reform. Drawing from a sample of 1,357 participants across Nigeria's 36 states and the FCT, the report captures the voices of Nigerians who interact daily with the judicial system, either through civil disputes, criminal justice processes, or fundamental rights cases.
This one is critical for us, leadership approval rating in various sectors. We want the duty bearers to know that these are the lived experience of citizens. These are their interpretation of the things they're experiencing. These are the challenges they perceive, and these are some of the recommendations they are making that government needs to act on. So this is very important for us.
We've gone out to sample opinions across the length and breadth of Nigeria of their perception of the judiciary. It's not a personal opinion of Eda. Eda, like I said, has gone to the field. And what you have here is the compilation of people's opinion. How do you feel? And it's across the age, it's across religion, it's across everything. How do Nigerians feel about the judiciary?
The Leadership Approval Rating Volume 5 outlines a range of concerns from citizens, including delayed justice delivery, biased rulings, and system corruption. The report also makes urgent reform recommendations such as full judicial autonomy and independence, reforms to the National Judicial Council, among others. Attendees agree the report serves as both a mirror and a map, reflecting existing flaws and pointing towards a future of integrity and reform. They called on political leaders, judicial officers, and citizens alike to engage with the report's findings and act decisively.
In spite and despite all the challenges that confront them, in spite and despite all the lacunas in our administration of justice, in our constitution, in our lawmaking process, in our judicial leadership, our recruitment processes, in spite of all of this that the judiciary itself alone cannot solve, there are so many things that the judiciary can help to solve. The judiciary can take an intentional position on reducing the number of awaiting trial persons.
With the publication now in public domain, it is hoped that the main actors will utilize its resource, as justice must be seen and felt. In Lagos, for News Central, Israel Ifirobo.
I hereby launch the publication from HIDA Resource Center.
The famous Kofa Mata dye pits, the home of the Kano tie and dye business, regarded as historical monuments in the country, are at the brink of extinction. This is as News Central's crew visited the over 5-century-old monuments and was greeted with mixed reactions by artisans who expressed their displeasure on the lack of patronage for made-in-Nigeria products, which they say is gradually killing the nation's tie and dye industry. The center once served as the first port of call for national and international tourists visiting Kano State, is now a shadow of its former self, as the tourists have all disappeared. News Central's Emmanuel Bagudu tells us more in this report. Take a look.
Before now, this highway used to be a beehive of activities as it hosted commuters who stopped to visit the popular Kofa Mata dye pits. The visit by foreign tourists to witness the historic tie and dye industry spans over 500 years. Unfortunately, the pit can only now be remembered for its past glory, as visitors and tourists are nowhere to be found. The area is now taken over by petty traders displaying their goods along the old perimeter fence. New Central Television visited the 527-year-old monument, speaking to Haruna Bappa, a seventh-generation artisan and offspring of one of the pit's founders, Muhammad Debusa.
We have some 144 pit here in the ground, and we have some 50 being used, and we have some 3 ingredients to give the solution, and we have some 3 different depth of the pit, 3 meter, 4 meter, and 6 meter deep, and we have some 200 people working here, both men and women.
To kuma wannan zani gaskiya baki sukan siye shi. America.
Visitors buy this fabric a lot from America, including Niger and Cameroon. They usually place order to supply it, and they place the order repeatedly because the fabric is good. And this is an inherited trade. It used to be white in color, and I'm changing it. If I continue like this for 1 hour, it will turn to that blue.
The techniques used at the Kofarmata dye pits have not evolved over time, with the practice and procedures remaining the same for centuries, and the skills passed from generations onto generations.
Now we are soaking the ingredient to making fermentation period.
This stirring machine is what brings out the chemical used for dyeing. If I don't turn it like this, the dye will not work. But if I continue like this, the dye work will look good. That is why we call it dye machine in Hausa, we call it Tukunyar Baba.
With about 144 pits built to engage 200 workers at a time, only 3 persons were seen at the pits. The situation on ground presents a grim picture and a threat of collapse of a 527 years industry that has spanned from generations onto generations. Mahmoud Usman is the oldest and the most experienced dye artisan on ground, a job that has earned him the title Emir of Kofarmata Dye Pits.
They should invest in this trade so that youth will admire it and enroll it in when they return from school. If that is done, the trade will not go into extinction.
Also, Bappa believes that the lack of patronage for made in Nigeria products is contributing to the setback and threat of collapse of the nation's dye industry.
That's the first business to calling the people outside Nigeria to come to patronizing our local made in Nigeria. So normally our business is a good business. So now we are called the local people and international people to come to put the capital inside this business. So maybe our economy of Nigeria is going to be circulated. So most of the Nigerian people, there's no patronizing our own made. That is why our economy is going to be falling down. So if Nigerian people patronizing our own made, maybe you can, our economy is going to be circulated. So now we are calling to like Bua, Aliko Dangote, and other richest people in Nigeria to come and patronizing local indigenous material from Kofarmata dye, especially northern Nigeria.
A passionate show of the sustenance of culture being exemplified by the passage of occupation from one generation to the other. It is expected that the Kofarmata dyeing pit, after spending 527 years of existence, will continue to blossom and, of course, create jobs for those that are passionate about tie and dye. In Kano for News Central, Emmanuel Bagudu.
You're watching news now on News Central Television. Let's go on a short break, shall we? When we return, the West African leaders are meeting in Ghana. We'll tell you all about it just after the break. Join us again. Hey, welcome back. West African leaders are meeting in Ghana to address the withdrawal of Niger, Mali and Burkina Faso from the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS. The two-day session, which began Tuesday in Accra, is focusing on the modalities of the withdrawal process and its impact on ECOWAS institutions operating within the 3 countries. The bloc plans to establish a framework for discussions with each nation to manage the transition. Tensions have risen since the 3 military-led states formed the Alliance of Sahel States and imposed a 0.5% import duty on goods from ECOWAS, excluding humanitarian aid. The move challenges ECOWAS's commitment to regional trade integration and free movement. Talks continue today as leaders seek a way forward for the region's stability and cooperation. Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva and Chilean President Gabriel Boric voiced strong criticism of U.S. trade measures during a summit in Brasilia, focused on regional integration. Now, the two leaders condemned the tariffs implemented by former U.S. President Donald Trump, warning of their broader impact on global commerce and South America's economies. Now, their remark came as concerns grow across Latin America over the lasting effects of the U.S.-led trade war. In response, Lula and Boric signed multiple bilateral agreements aimed at deepening cooperation between Brazil and Chile, with a shared emphasis on boosting intra-regional trade. Palestinian President Mohammed Abbas has called on Hamas to release all remaining hostages in Gaza, describing the issue as a major driver of ongoing Israeli military operations. Speaking in Ramallah, Abbas criticized the militant group for providing what he called justification for intensified attacks on the Gaza Strip. He stressed that it is Palestinians, not Israelis, who are suffering the consequences of Hamas's actions. Nigeria's top banks, Zenith, GTCO, UBA, Access, and First Holdco, posted a record 5.1 trillion naira profit in 2024, driven by FX gains, rising interest income as well, and strong investor confidence despite economic pressures. Oluwayemisi Sumolu, the banking research analyst at Vetiva Capital, noted that some banks met requirements and rarely reduce dividends.
So there is an expectation that, especially with the banks, they would either meet their dividend payout, because most of the times we don't see them go back on dividends, or we might not what we do not expect is the higher dividend growth than what was recorded in the year 2024. So we could likely see dividends stay either the same or close slightly higher, given profit expectations.
Nigeria's under-17 women's team, the Flamingos, have arrived in Algiers ahead of the FIFA Under-17 Women's World Cup final qualifying round second leg clash against Algeria. The match is scheduled for Friday in Blida. The Flamingos go into the fixture with a commanding 4-goal advantage following a dominant 4-0 win in the first leg played in Ikenne last Saturday. With a World Cup ticket in sight, the team is expected to defend their lead and secure qualification for the global tournament. The tie marks the final hurdle in the African qualification series for the 2024 FIFA Under-17 Women's World Cup. FIFA has imposed a transfer ban on Tunisian club US Ban Garden due to unpaid wages owed to former Nigerian player Idris Kabiru. The sanction means the club will be unable to register new players until the outstanding payments are settled. The global football body's disciplinary action underscores its continued effort to protect players' rights and enforce contract compliance. US Ben Garden must resolve the financial dispute to lift the ban, which could impact their squad development and performance in upcoming competitions. The ruling adds to the growing list of clubs facing consequences for breach of contractual obligations, particularly in cases involving international players. And that's all we can take at this hour. But before we go, let's take another look at some of the major stories. Delta State Governor Sheriff Oboriwori has announced a faction from the People's Democratic Party to the winning APC. The court in Finland has approved extradition of self-acclaimed Prime Minister of Biafra, Simon Ekpa, to Nigeria over alleged terrorism. And we also told you that withdrawal of Niger, Mali and Burkina Faso is atop of the agenda as ECOWAS leaders meet in Ghana. Now do remember that you can send us your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number now showing on the screen. And while you're at it, make sure to follow us on social media. We're at News Central TV on all social media platforms. You can always watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422. We're on GoTV now. Find us on channel 23, Star Times channel 274. We're also on Avo TV, or stream us live on YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I am Judith at TV. Bye for now.